Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was told I had a voice for radio, and today I'm bringing you something a little bit different. For those of you that don't know, during the day when I'm not out Pokemoning, I am teaching law and business. So, today I am putting on my business hat and my Pokemon hat at the very same time, and I am going to try and explain to you why the new Jolteon EX is so gosh darned expensive. So starting off, what do I mean when I say gosh darned expensive? Well, I've looked at eBay and a whole bunch of websites to determine prices. So, on eBay at the moment, the cheapest way to buy a Jolteon EX is £40 posted. Now, using some fancy software to convert into dollars, that's $57. Okay? So I don't want to buy on eBay. Well, there are two UK websites that I tend to use sometimes to buy singles, Magic Madhouse and Chaos Cards, both of whom are selling for about £25, which is about $35. Now, you might be thinking, oh, £25, that's cheaper than $40. Well, it would be if it was in stock, but it's not. So let's go over to some American websites. Let's go over to Professor Oak. This is a website that I've used on occasions to buy singles. They don't have any in stock, okay? Let's go over to Troll and Toad, another website that I have used in the past. They're available for $45 plus postage. Now that's about £32 plus postage. It's going to come out a little bit under £40. Not much, but a little. Oh wait, it's out of stock again. So all of these large websites, well-known websites I've looked at, they're all out of stock, and we're paying £40, which comes to about $60 on eBay. So, why is it so expensive? Well, let's start with the business section first, and we'll get into Pokemon in a bit, and then we'll discuss whether this is a worthwhile investment, or whether you should just wait and get it cheaper later on. Now, the reason for the increase in price is the new Pokemon set Generations. Now, this is a very unusual set. Generally, the way Pokemon cards are released is that you buy individual packs, or you buy booster boxes of 36 packs, and shops will buy in booster boxes and they will sell them as single packs. Nice and simple. That means that lots and lots and lots of packs of every set are put out into the public. But that's not what's happening with Generations. It is only being released in sealed product. Now, there are the mythical boxes, where one box is being released every month. The very first one is Mew, and then in March you've got the Celebi box, and so on going through the rest of the year. And when you buy one of these boxes, you get 2 packs of Generations. Well, that ain't much good. How do you get more? You can buy the red and blue collections. Now, there's going to be a Charizard, a Venusaur, a Blastoise, and a Pikachu. The 3 fully evolved starters and the mascot from the original Pokemon games. And in these boxes, you get 4 packs. Now, considering you're paying somewhere in the region of $15 for a mythical collection box and $25 for a red and blue collection box to get 2 or 4 boosters respectively, this is not particularly efficient way of buying them. In the UK, you'll pay about £12 for the mythical boxes, about £6 a booster. Or if you're lucky, for about £16, you can go and buy the red and blue collection, which bring them down to £4 a booster, given that your average booster costs around about £3.50. Now you can probably see why these cards are a little bit rarer. So that's the first thing. There are less of these in circulation. However, I should point out here that at the moment we've only got the Mew box and the Celebi box. Over time, as more of these boxes are released, more of these cards will get into circulation. Now, the good news is that these cards are never going to get out there as much as your ordinary set where booster boxes are selling by the bucket load. So, they will at least retain some semblance of value you would expect for collectors going forward. Now, going into some more businessy stuff, let me explain very briefly, and I'm sorry if this is patronising, the basics of supply and demand. Here's a supply and demand chart. Boom. What it essentially means is that if the supply of something is low, the price tends to go up. Assuming, of course, that the demand stays the same, and conversely, if the supply goes up, then assuming the demand stays the same, the price will lower. And similarly, if demand goes up, assuming supply stays the same, then the price will increase. And if demand goes down, assuming that supply stays the same, then the price will decrease. Nice and simple. Now, the problem with these Jolteon cards is the demand is rising, people think they're good, and the supply is very, very low because these generation packs are not in as high a circulation as you would usually get. And high demand plus low supply equals high price. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone full business. Now, again, like I've said, the fact that these generation packs will become more prevalent as more of these mythical collections and red and blue collections are released would suggest that over time this is going to get slightly better. So now let's actually have a look at the card. Is the card any good? Well, the first attack is okay. It's not amazing, but it's alright. It does 30 damage for a single energy. And it goes through weakness, resistance, and any effect on the defending Pokemon. Now, to be honest, I would like to hit through weakness. I like hitting with weakness because you get to do more damage. But the fact that it can go through effects on the defending Pokemon is pretty good. For instance, it would be able to hit a Pyroar, as an example, which generally has an ability that blocks basic Pokemon. But really, we're looking at the second attack here, although the fact that it has free retreat should not be overlooked. 70 damage for a lightning and a double colourless. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by basic Pokemon, or by attacks from basic Pokemon. Now, this is pretty gosh darn good. To take a couple of common examples, Night March is a deck that revolves around Pumpkaboo and Joltik. It's basically entirely basic. Some decks play a Milotic, which is a stage 1, but if Jolteon is coming down against Milotic, you're going to be having a good day. So if you can get a Jolteon out against Night March, it sounds like you're going to be having a good day. Similarly, let's say you're against an Yveltal Darkrai deck. That's basically an entirely basic deck, and you're hitting the Yveltal for weakness. The fact that Jolteon is a lightning-type Pokemon in the current format, with Yveltal being king, and there will be a video about that in the not-too-distant future, certainly gives him a pretty hefty advantage. Heck, if you were to go and put a Muscle Band onto Jolteon, you would be able to one-hit KO an Yveltal EX. And this is all sounding pretty gosh darn good. So there must be some downsides. While there are. The first and most obvious one is it blocks basic Pokemon. It doesn't block evolutions, and it doesn't block any Pokemon brought into play through Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick and Archie's Ace in the Hole, because they count as unevolved Pokemon. But not basics. They don't count as evolved Pokemon, but they don't count as basics. I.e., they can hit through Jolteon. And something like a Gallade, for instance, will be able to one-hit KO Jolteon quite easily for a DCE due to Jolteon's potentially unfortunate fighting weakness. I should also point out that Garchomp one-hits it, and that makes me very happy indeed. And actually, Garchomp one-hits it with just a strong energy or a fighting stadium or a muscle band, because he's got 160, not 170 or 180. Here's the thing though, these Archies and Maxies Pokemon are inconsistent in the standard format. In Expanded, we've got Computer Search, we've got Execute, and we've got Jirachi, all of whom make it easier to get it out. Computer Search means you can empty your hand and search for a Maxies or an Archies. Jirachi allows you to search your deck for a supporter card, so you can use something like an Ultra Ball to clear your hand, grab a Jirachi, and then go and search the Archies or the Maxies. And Execute has an ability allowing you to put it into your hand, meaning that if you want to only discard one card with Ultra Ball, you can do so by bringing Execute into your hand and then discarding it. But in standard format, it's not quite as consistent to use these. But there are some other downsides. First of all, this attack takes free energy. And yes, you can use a double colourless energy to get it going more quickly. And yes, you can use a max elixir, as long as Jolteon's on the bench, to try and grab an extra energy to attach to Jolteon. But decks like Night March are so fast, ladies and gentlemen, that they may well be able to just outspeed Jolteon and kill you before you even get going. But even if, let's say for argument's sake, you are playing a basic deck, not a deck with evolutions or Archie's Pokemon, and let's say that you get Jolteon going really, really fast. Well, cards like Lysander still exist, and you can use Lysander to bring Pokemon off your opponent's bench and kill them and just ignore the Jolteon, because against a non-lightning weak deck, 70 damage is not all that much. So you can be picking off their bench, killing stuff on their bench, and any time you are left with only one Pokemon in play, because obviously your opponent's way around this is just to go, alright then, I'm just going to leave a Jolteon in play. Maybe your opponent drops a surprise Pokemon that can kill Jolteon, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the game. Although I should mention one really good thing about Jolteon, not unlike Seismitoad's Quaking Punch with Trainer Lock, once you do the attack, it is there. What that means is Hexmaniac won't turn it off, it's not an ability, and things of that nature. However, it must be pointed out that as soon as Jolteon goes to the bench, he is no longer considered as the same Pokemon. So for instance, if you were to play an Escape Rope to put Jolteon to the bench, and then play a Lysander to bring the Jolteon back active, you would then be able to KO him with a basic Pokemon. So needing free energy, only blocking basics, not evolutions or Archie's and Maxie's Pokemon, being able to pick around Jolteon with Lysander, and in fact, being able to put Jolteon to the bench with something like Escape Rope and then bring him active with Lysander, all of these ways around mean that Jolteon is a useful tech Pokemon. It is the kind of card you could put in a deck to improve some matchups, but it's really not a card, I don't think at this stage, you can really build a deck around and really rely on having this amazing deck. So going back to, I suppose, the initial question here, or I suppose a derivative thereof. Is Jolteon going to keep its value? Should you invest? And I'm going to use another business thing here, because in business it's very useful to look at a long-term, short-term position. And in the short term, will Jolteon keep its value? I would say no, for two reasons. Firstly, it is a useful Pokemon that will see play in some decks. But it is not an amazing Pokemon around which you will build a deck. It's got too many downsides, too many ways to play around it. Even decks like Night March, which you would imagine Jolteon will be really good against, can use Escape Rope, Lysander, or even just outspeeding it to beat it. And there's plenty of decks against which Jolteon would be next to useless. So in the short term, and of course, let's not forget that more generations are going to go into circulation. There is every possibility at the moment people are overreacting to a very small amount of this set being in circulation. And as more generations gets released, the price of all of these cards will come down. In the long term, however, there are certain variables. How well generation sells. How many of these packs, how many of these boxes are actually sold? The more that get sold, the greater supply, the lower the price. See, we're back. The playability of Jolteon, because the fact remains, if somebody goes and makes an amazing game-breaking deck with Jolteon, so that anyone who wants to play this amazing game-breaking best deck in the format has to have Jolteon, then the price will inevitably go up. And there is every possibility that Jolteon EX might get reprinted in a later set, like the 4 billion prints of Black and White Reshiram we've had, as an example. And if that happens, it will absolutely destroy the value of Jolteon overnight. However, long term, I think Jolteon could keep some value, and here's why. Generations is not a very playable set. It is a collectible set. It is not the kind of thing that people are going to buy loads of like they would a really good set to try and pull cards to play with. Although it should be pointed out that the vast majority of cards are actually sold to children going into a supermarket or another kind of shop and going, hey mum, 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 can I have a Pokemon pack? And then mum giving in and saying, fine, if it'll shut you up, you can have a packet of Pokemon cards. or indeed when you get to 30 and then you're saying, hey girlfriend, can I have a packet of Pokemon cards? And she says, for goodness sake, you're a grown man, buy your own Pokemon cards, I'm going to the car, I don't want to be seen with you anymore. Hypothetically speaking. And there is a possibility that the set doesn't sell as well as other sets, and that a bunch of people that buy these boxes, not unlike myself, keep them up on a shelf so that they look pretty but don't actually open them. And then, and we're talking, in the future, a year or two down the line, a few years down the line, Generations hasn't sold that well because it's a novelty set sold as, product. People are buying a box or two rather than, 4 booster packs rather than 36. And then actually all of these good Generations cards, or fun Generations cards, or pretty generation cards, end up retaining a fair amount of value. Of course, if that happens, you might as well just go and get Charizard EX and Mega Charizard EX, because everybody knows they are going to keep value far better than Jolteon ever will. Is that a bit of an anticlimactic ending? I think it might be. Make sure you click that like button, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, this is the first kind of video I've done like this, but the videos where I explain about decks, like my Sableye video and Greninja video, they have proven to be my most popular videos lately, so I thought something like this might tickle your fancy. Like if you do, and to be honest, like if you don't, click the like button, it'll take a second, it'll make me happy. But the comment section, that's where we're getting into this. I would love some feedback on this. Let me know if this is a kind of video you would like to see more of, or indeed whether this is a kind of video where you think, you know what, don't want it, not interested. I'm fine either way. Well, actually, I'm not. I'd like you to like the video, but feedback is good. And of course, make sure you subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, go and get a friend to subscribe instead. And the most important thing, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.